SBR NHL Play of the Day video. It feels like it's been a long time. It feels like last season. It's the last time we were doing this video, but we're glad to be back finally. The YouTube ban is over. The SBR YouTube channel is back up and running, and so are we. It's the SBR Double Play of the Day video for Saturday, December 21st, our final video before Christmas. So Merry Christmas to those of you watching. We appreciate those that have tuned in regularly to the SBR NHL Play of the Day through the first almost half the season. There's a little over half the season left. Of course, there's no hockey Tuesday. There's no hockey Thursday this week. So we do want to point that out. So that's just so you're aware that our next video will be next Saturday, a week from today. Saturday, December 28th will be our next double play video. And then finally, starting next Saturday, we should be back into that regular rhythm and schedule that we had for most of the season, which is Saturdays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, bringing you this Play of the Day video. So we're happy to be back. Adam, how are you? Before we get into the plays, how you been? How's your NHL season been? And what do you think of what we've seen so far this year on the ice?
I'm good. Yeah. I mean, when we don't do a show, I don't get to chat with you because you're so busy as well with other sports. And so it's sort of like us catching up a little bit as well. No, NHL season's going well. Recovering nicely from a rough November here in December. So I've been good. And we had a great week of my article Play of the Days last week. I think we hit 6 of 7 or something last week, or 5 of 7. It was a good week for those articles. I'm good, man. I'm excited to get through this one today. And it's always a kind of crazy time of year, not just for us, but for the players with, the traveling before their Christmas plans. And there's a 3-day break, and then it's like full swing playoff. Let's gear up for the playoffs after this. So, I'm good. And I like the card today. There's a number of games that I'm in love with, but the one I've selected today, I feel quite strongly about.
All right, quite. We always like to hear that we're strong about it, what we recommend. And I feel that way too. When I put out something, it's something I feel good about. It's something I've bet. It's something you've bet. And that's the thing. Yeah. We're not just giving out plays that we don't bet or we don't think are strong. We bet these. We take money out of our own pocket, just like everybody on the SBR channel. They're betting the plays that they're recommending. So that's the great thing about listening to anybody on the SBR channel, is that we're actually bettors. We're betting money here. And I want to bring that up because I've heard some bad stories about people giving out plays and they're not actually betting them themselves. So
really?
That's never something that
is this Twitter drama?
Yeah, there's been some issues with that. But rest assured, we at the SBR channel, if we like a play and we say we're on it, we literally are on it. We're taking money out of our pocket and we're betting it. That's exactly the way it works. I want to throw a funny story out, and then we'll get to Adam's play first.
We need to give you a grind your gear segment here. I think.
No, this is not a grind my gear segment.
No, go for it.
Because it's actually not a rant. It's just a funny little story about a 5-6 minute sequence that happened on Thursday night. So there were 3 games that went to overtime simultaneously on Thursday night. It was the Kings and the Blue Jackets, the Bruins and the Islanders, and the Stars and the Lightning. Yeah. They were all in overtime at the same time on Thursday night. Like literally, the 3 games were in the overtime period, the 5-minute overtime at the same time. Well, I had a bet on each and every one of those 3 games that were in overtime at the same time, and I was on the underdog in each of those games. The Kings, the Stars, and the Islanders in those games on Thursday. And I just wanted to bring that up because it had to have been one of the most nerve-wracking, intense 5 minutes that I've had all season watching NHL hockey, because you've got 3 games all in overtime, all at the same time. You're one shot away from either going 0-3 or 3-0 potentially, and it could completely wreck or save your night depending on what happens. Thankfully, and my heart's just pounding and racing the whole time. And usually I don't get that stirred up because I've been doing this a long time. But when you have that kind of swing that's on the line, and all 3 games are in overtime, boy, it gets your heart racing just a little bit. Thankfully, we got out of there with 2 out of 3 coming through. The Kings lost, but the Stars and the Islanders won. So it ended up working out okay. But boy, those were 5 heart-racing minutes for yours truly on Thursday night.
I was on the other
betting
side
NHL hockey. What an exciting sport.
Yeah. Let's have a shootout where, one guy bobbles the puck and blows it 12 feet wide, even though it's just him and the goalie. No, I was on the other side of all 3 of those. So, but I'm so high volume that it's probably less of a issue for me, given that I had action on, all 10 games, and, for you, you're more selective. So I could see how for you, yeah, it was more, this could make or break my night. So, and you had those dogs were quite big, actually. I think Dallas was plus 140, 150, and the Islanders were plus 150, 160. So yeah, no, that's a nice, you're okay with the shootout overall when you've got those kinds of odds, because even if you go 1 and 2 in it, you're still going to be down less than half a unit kind of thing. So
that's exactly right. And it's just a question of, even if you lose some of those dogs in overtime, the fact you get to overtime means you were on the right side of the value equation, because you get a plus price in your pocket for any game that goes to overtime. That's usually the place you want to be. You'd rather be on the side where you're plus 160 going into overtime than minus 160 going into overtime. You're a little bit more when that happens, definitely when it comes to an overtime game. All right. Time to get to the Saturday card. Adam, Absolutely. We'll start with you. It's the Tampa Bay Lightning, Washington Capitals. That's the game you're going to as your play of the day. One of the marquee matchups as well on this Saturday card. We have courtesy of SBRodds.com. Make sure you're using that every day. Tampa Bay minus 110 to minus 115. Slight road favorites here. Total 6.5, shaded to the over. I can tell you right now, I have a bet over the total in this game, just because I've been on Tampa, Washington over the total both previous regular season meetings this year, and both of them got to 7 goals exactly. So, 6.5, probably if they finally adjust this up to 7, I'm not involved, but 6.5, I'm going to be betting this thing over the total. We're seeing Tampa Bay really struggle defensively again, continues to be a problem. Can't hold leads. Couldn't hold the lead against Ottawa earlier this week, but they survived it and won in overtime 4-3 with Anthony Cirelli's goal. And then against Dallas the other night, they're up 3-1 in that game, but again, defensive shortcomings, inability to protect a lead, bites the Tampa Bay Lightning. Dallas ties it and then wins in overtime 4-3. So this is a team that, and Vasilevsky's been okay. He's definitely not been as good, but I think the players in front of him as much, if not more, to blame for what we're seeing from Tampa Bay defensively. Their penalty kill is still lousy. It's still struggling. Teams are lighting them up with the man advantage. That's always a bad sign when you're playing a team like the Washington Capitals, who just have one of the top power plays going in the NHL. So I was on the over in both of the previous meetings this year with the Capitals and Lightning, and I'm going to be on that total over as well tonight. Not my play of the day, but I just wanted to mention I am on the over in that game. This is Adam's play of the day. Adam, what do you like here, Lightning Capitals?
Yeah, I love the Capitals. And let's start with, they lose twice to Columbus in the last 2 weeks, where they're quite a short favorite, minus 200 at home, and then, minus 160, 17. I think it was minus 160 on the road. And both times they lose by 3 goals. Out of this one, they come into Jersey last night. And for the first 2 periods, I thought the Capitals were the more dangerous looking team, but I thought it was a very close affair. And then they scored 2 goals in the last minute of the first period. They scored 1 goal in the last minute of the second period. And then in the third period, they just blow it open and sort of flex on the Devils, doing what I think most people would say is the expected outcome. I was on the Devils because I thought the price was too big on them. But Washington has continuously been a good performing team against every level of opponent for most of the season. Jackets had their number in 2 games, but that's also, just it could just be a situational thing. And, Washington didn't play badly in at least one of those games. So coming into tonight, I love the fact that you've got the best team standings wise, who is not slumping as a home dog, simply because they're on a back-to-back. And because it's, the very potent and dangerous offense of the Tampa Bay Lightning. And, both teams are averaging about 3 goals a game, both for and against. Washington isn't necessarily shutting them down. You covered well why, an over is a good play here. The Tampa Bay power play has been clicking the last few games. It's 30%, somewhere in that range. Both teams have a good penalty kill at the moment, above 90%. Through this stretch of games, but I still favor the Capitals, both in their recent form and on the season. And I mentioned in the article, because I was talking to a guy on Twitter yesterday, and there was a period of time here where the Bolts, they are given a shot discrepancy in their favor, they are, about 500, and given a shot discrepancy against them, they're still about 500. So it's kind of like in games in which you are on the Tampa Bay Lightning, they outplay their opponent. They still are only coming away with a win maybe 50% of the time when they should be, 65, 70% of the time, like the Capitals are. The Capitals are 9-3 with the same kind of shot discrepancies compared to 5-6 or 6-5 that the Bolts are for the whole season. Additionally, Tampa, in games in which they've been outshot by 10 goals or 10 shots or more, but have let under 30 shots, they're sitting around 4-4. And you're wondering, what a frustrating team to bet for and against when, you depending on which side of it you're on, maybe it's been working out in your favor. It certainly hasn't in mine, at least in that Dallas Stars game. But I agree with what you said about the inconsistency on the Tampa Bay defense. That is probably the biggest concern if I was to take Tampa, which of course I haven't. And they're not doing enough. And I think there was a quote from one of their players just saying, last year, when we get in these games that maybe we shouldn't win, we'd still get those W's. And this year, it's the opposite's happening. And I have no concern about a Washington team on a back-to-back. I think they're 3-1 or 4-1 on back-to-backs this season. Not that even if they were 1-3 and we were still getting them as a plus 100 dog here, I still would take them. It would not cause me to cross them off the list here. But I think I have them at 57% today to win. Significant value on the best team in the league, not in a slump, simply because they're on a back-to-back. And I mentioned in the article, maybe it's a revenge spot, but it was a revenge spot for the Bolts when they hosted Capitals a week ago or whatever it was, So that's my angle here. I elaborated on it quite a bit in the article, and it's not about me being so confident. It's, as I say almost every time on this show, any team can win, especially when I'm picking lines that are in that, minus 110, plus 100 range. I agree with the market that they're very evenly matched, and their head-to-head is very back and forth too. So if, Capitals are sleeping early on, if they have a bad penalty kill, if they, are undisciplined, Tampa is going to be able to punish them. So, but I like the value on the home dog here.
All right, liking Washington to get the job done here. Plus 102 is the price that Adam got with this. You can still get a slight plus price in most places right now, so make sure you check that out. Washington plus 102 against Tampa Bay. Yeah, and I like the over in that game. And again, I'm not going again. I would agree. If I'm betting the side, I would look to Washington right now. I don't like it. I bet against Tampa Bay with Dallas the other night. And you saw against Ottawa, and I'm going to talk about Ottawa in a second, a banged up, beleaguered blue line beyond belief right now.
Yeah.
And Tampa Bay was life or death to beat them early in the week. So the Lightning still have problems. John Cooper sits down Kucherov for a giveaway in that game against Ottawa.
Yeah.
You got to wonder. That's a sure sign that, I'm sick of these guys. They're tuning me out. The message isn't getting through. If I need to sit a star player down, I'm going to do it. And that's exactly what he did. There's some disconnect right now, I think, with Cooper and his players. I really do. I think
it feels that way. Yeah, it feels like, because in interviews that I've watched with him before, he seems like a very chilled temperament of a coach. Like, he doesn't get too hot under the collar. He's not the type to sort of Tortorella style, bank skate his players, give them, just the rundown of everything they did wrong in the previous game. But yeah, it feels, I get that sort of perspective that you're saying there, that they're not really putting into practice what he wants them to do. And they're sort of, I hear what you're saying there.
And again, every NHL coach has a shelf life. At some point, the message gets lost. The message gets stale. Coaches get tuned out. I'm not saying we're there yet with Cooper, but it's looking like more and more we're inching there toward that point with him. All right, for me, I've gone to Philadelphia, Ottawa for my play of the day, because I always like to talk not just a play I like, and I do like this play quite a bit, but at betting concepts. That's part of what we want to give you here. Adam, he talks about price concepts. A lot of Adam's bets are based on pricing. I think this line is 10, 20 cents cheap. So I'm on this side for that reason. the odds are in my favor. Yeah, for me, I look more at constructs and concepts in terms of, things you can look at in terms of winds of change, so to speak, in terms of, because teams aren't going to stay the same way for 82 games. No way. That's why there's peaks and valleys. And we have an Ottawa team that's gone south in a particular direction here that I'm about to elaborate on. Philadelphia minus 140 in this game as road favorites. The total 6, about minus 110 to minus 115. The Ottawa Senators last Saturday played a game against Columbus. And in that game, they lost 2 defensemen to injury, Nikita Zaitsev and Dylan DeMelo. And those aren't guys that are going to sound off alarm bells or excite the betting markets and say they're not going to notice. Joe Public is not going to notice, wow, Nikita Zaitsev and Dylan DeMelo out. Wow, big absences. I got to bet the other side or do something with this game. But I notice because I see how teams play game in, game out with all the hockey I watch. And for an Ottawa team that, was actually playing pretty sturdy defensively, believe it or not, before then, those 2 guys were big. Those are 2 big defensive. They're 2 of their better stay-at-home, shut-down defensemen. Zaitsev's a leading shot blocker. He was in his days with Toronto as well. Dylan DeMelo's also developed into a really good, sturdy, shut-down defenseman. So those 2 guys were out, and we saw the results after that with those 2 guys out against Florida on Monday, against Tampa Bay on Tuesday, and then against Nashville on Thursday. Ottawa suddenly, the dam has burst for this team defensively. I mean, they're giving up goals in bunches. They're giving up grade A scoring chances, high danger chances in bunches. There's miscommunication. There's breakdowns. There's turnovers in the defensive zone. There's bad penalty killing all of a sudden. Things that really weren't happening for Ottawa before all these injuries. And now, just when it's already bad enough with those 2 guys out, now we see that Ron Haines gets hurt the other night against Nashville, and he's out long term. So that's 3 of your 6 regular starting defensemen. And these are the teams I love to target when it comes to overs during the season because when they suffer cluster, not just one, but cluster injuries on the blue line, more than one, like 2, 3 injuries like Ottawa's dealing with right now. And especially teams like Ottawa that just don't have the adequate level of depth to replace those guys and find other guys to eat up those minutes. Who's going to eat up Ron Haines? He's 37. Ron Haines was out there at almost 40 years old, late 30s, playing 37 minutes the other night, because of how depleted the Ottawa blue line is. That's how DJ Smith's, he's going at the bottom of the barrel right now, trying to find guys to, pick up the slack and fill these minutes. He was the one guy and Shabbat obviously is the other that plays big minutes. So you got Shabbat playing huge minutes, and he's going to probably play even more. He could come close to 40, knowing the way DJ Smith's gone the last few games with these, relying on these defensemen because of all the injuries. But now you're going to have to rely on, man alive, a lot of AHL Belleville Senator call-ups in these depth defensive positions for the Ottawa Senators going into this game today with 3 starting defensemen down. Again, Zaitsev, DeMelo, and Hainsey. You're going to look at Cody Golubeff, who has been, I think he's been played more of his career, honestly, in the AHL than he has the NHL. He's on the top pairing now with Shabbat. That is something. That is really, really, really something right there. Borowiecki with Brandstrom, your second pair. And then you've got an all-AHL call-up pairing as your third defensive pair, Ottawa tonight, with Andreas Englund and Max Lajoie. So it is really, really thin, perilously thin Ottawa defense. We've seen it in recent games. Philadelphia offensively, I was worried about them for a bit, and that was the one concern maybe I had a little bit betting this over, was Philly's offense was really not firing lately, but I think they had to come alive, get back on track, get well game the other night against the Buffalo Sabres. They absolutely lit up Buffalo in that game. And Travis Konechny's back from injury. Huge for them because he was their leading goal scorer before getting hurt. They at least have him back to play alongside Couturier and Claude Giroux, which is a very good top line. James Van Riemsdyk's been scoring lately. Morgan Frost, their first-round picks, really played well and given them some offense lately. So even with the injuries to Raffl and Patrick and Lindblom, who's obviously dealing with the cancer diagnosis, and Scott Lawton and some other guys, at least having Konechny back, Giroux starting to get going again, JVR's scoring, Morgan Frost has chipped in. There's enough offense here for Philly, I think, to just absolutely feast on a weak, struggling, depth-shy Ottawa defense coming into tonight. But on the flip side, you look at Ottawa offensively, they're still scoring. They scored against Nashville. They scored against Tampa. they're not having issues scoring goals. Anthony Duclair's been absolutely outstanding for them. He's making John Tortorella eat his words for saying that guy, just it's not going to ever develop into anything much. He's developing into quite a nice little offensive weapon right now for the Ottawa Senators. J.G. Pajot's had a good offensive season. Brady Tkachuk. Lately, we've seen Anisimov and Tyler Ennis and Nemesnikov playing on that second line score goals for Ottawa. So their offense is fine. Carter Hart's been really good. That's the one little fly in the ointment potentially for me with this bet, is that he could, hold Ottawa to 1 or 2, and then you're going to need, 5 goals from Philly to get you over the total. But I do think Ottawa can score, especially at home too. Carter Hart's numbers have been fantastic at home. They've not been quite as good on the road. So as good as he's been lately overall, I think he won't be quite that, stand on his head goalie tonight on the road in Ottawa. So I think there's a lot of factors that line up. I've been riding Ottawa over the total 3 times this week. Cashed each time against Florida, against Tampa, against Nashville, with these defensive injuries piling up, and now Haines, 37-minute man, out of the lineup. It's even worse. So for me, Philadelphia, Ottawa, over 6, -110, my Saturday play of the day.
I'm going to join you on that, Ian. I've got the over 6 at 52%. But we got a question from Dis the Answer, which was kind of my thought as you were talking. Philly team total over. I mean, at Pinnacle right now, the over 3.5 is at +121. What are your thoughts on that one?
Well, they gave up 6 to Florida. They gave up 4 to Tampa Bay. They gave up 4 to Nashville.
Because you're thinking Philly's going to do most of the legwork here, is what your angle is. So
I will have that Philly team total in my pocket.
Yeah, that screams value if you're getting a plus number and you're thinking they're going to, pop most of the goals here to get that over anyway. But I don't see that as a double down necessarily, because Philly also, in these last 2 games has shut out, the Ducks and the Sabres. So maybe Ottawa doesn't get anything going against Philly, So maybe you're just sort of hedging not hedging in a way, but securing some value on the Flyers, which are going to do more of the work anyway.
That's true. Those 2 shutouts were impressive. Or actually, Buffalo did score once, I believe. They did.
Both Anaheim scored as well. Once.
And Anaheim did once as well. But still, they were good defensively. I hear what you're saying. Hart's been amazing lately, but on the road he's not been quite as good. And if you actually look back to Philly, remember this game's in Ottawa. The last 2 that were on the road for Philly, they gave up 4 to Minnesota. They gave up, I believe, 6 or 7 to Winnipeg. So their defensive numbers and Hart have been weaker on the road than at home. That's why, and Ottawa's been scoring at home. So I do think Ottawa will find the scoreboard and find the back of the net tonight. So I am confident Ottawa will find the back of the net here in this game tonight. But I do think Philly wins the game. I think it could be 5-2 Philly, 5-3 Philly, something like that. But it goes over the total. But I like the Philly team total. For the person that asked that in the chat there, Dis the Answer, Philly team total over. Absolutely, I would not talk you out of that.
Okay.
There we go. So just to recap, we're done. We went a little over, but it's our first video. You have to indulge us. We haven't.
Well, we've been off for a little while. We had we had to chat a little more shit today, so I'm glad we did.
No question. Again, there's no 11 a.m. show. The next show on this channel is at noon Eastern, so we knew we had a little extra time today. So to recap, we're both profitable with plays of the day so far this season, as you can see by the records below. Adam Booth is on Washington +102 against Tampa Bay, and my play of the day, Philadelphia, Ottawa over 6 -110. Let's go for that 2-0 sweep. Thanks to everyone for tuning in to the NHL play of the day video. We will be back next Saturday, December 28th. 10:15 a.m. Eastern time with our next video, and then after that we should be back to our normal routine Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday, 3 days a week, bringing you the SBR NHL double play of the day video. For Adam Booth, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Saturday. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to everyone watching. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great Saturday. Good luck on the ice. We'll see you again next Saturday on the double play.